vehicle and within arm's reach of them.
And they're still shooting.
And they're still shooting, trying to kill this deer that's not running, not moving, standing there while bullets fly past it. And I will add this: most of the time they don't hit it. I don't know if their adrenaline's pumping or what,
Sure.
but it's a funny story, but it's very dangerous.
So, yeah, how long have we had those deer decoys? 10, 15 years now?
No, about 20.
Have we really?
Yes.
Well, I remember the first year they came out, I talked to, was it Perry County out here, Perrin? Mm-hmm. And I think the first night they set that out, it got shot, I think, 37 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I go, you're kidding.
No.
And I looked at the decoy, and we used to take it to the state fair and show people. But those decoys, and they're working. I mean, if you stop and look at them, they're working because we don't have as much problem. Let me ask you a question. The people that shoot those decoys, are those your real violators out, or are they more opportunists, do you think, that didn't intend to do that, just got caught up in the moment?
You have both.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have people who are focusing that would never shoot a deer other than a trophy. That's what they're out to get. They're out to steal your trophy off your lease or your private property. Mm-hmm. And then you have others that are just opportunistic, that they're looking for some quick camp meat or something like that. Now, I'll also add in that most of the time there's alcohol and drugs involved in this, and that just makes
surely not.
Yeah, just makes it more dangerous.
Yeah. What are some of the excuses you hear when you pull up to them and they're doing this? I mean, what did they say?
I actually had a guy tell me one time that the only reason he shot at that decoy was because the horns were so big on it, the antlers were that big, and it was a doe decoy. So, you're liable to hear anything.
That's that alcohol and drugs coming into play there.
Of course, there's most of the stories are generated around the night hunting stuff, but we started using them during the daytime to address road hunting issues and complaints. And one funny story that comes to mind is we had one up one year in Yale County, and a guy pulled up. It was archery season. He got out of the truck. The doorbell on the truck where he left the door open was dinging, and he shot at it with a crossbow and missed it. And he's trying to cock it, and I said, "Sir, it's a dummy." He said, "Shut up, man! You're going to scare it off."
He told you that?
Yeah, but anyway, saved him a second arrow. He didn't shoot the second time.
It probably cost him a lot more than just a second arrow.
It did. But
wow, he didn't want you to scare the deer off, and wow. Mike, can you remember back that far?
Oh, wow, man! I remember in 1993, our district wrote 108 night hunting tickets in Dallas County. 108. That'll tell you how the times have changed.
Wow.
One of the things, and it seems like the funny stories always surround decoys, but one that happened there in Dallas County that was kind of funny and kind of sad at the same time. This gentleman had called me up at Tulip. If you ever been to Tulip, Arkansas, and he said, they've been shooting in my hay meadow, and it was during the day. And I said, would you mind if I come up and set up a decoy? And he said, absolutely not. Bring it on. And he was a little older gentleman, very nice man. So we went up there and put the decoy up. And we were sitting there, and we'd actually caught one bunch had stopped and shot at the decoy. And we're sitting there talking. There's no traffic around. And the next thing, I start hearing gunshots. And I get up, and I run to the edge of the pavement. There's no vehicles anywhere. And I'm trying to course these shots, and I look up at his house. And let me back up. Before we set it up, I stopped to tell him we were going to put it up, and he wasn't home.
Okay. So he really didn't know you were down there.
He didn't know we were there, so you see where this is going.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he's leaned up on his fence, and he's shooting at this decoy, and I'm hollering and screaming, trying to get him stopped, and his wife's out there with him. So by the time we get there, he is absolutely bleeding everywhere. He's crawled so far into that scope trying to bear down on that decoy that it kicked back and cut his eyebrow really bad. And anyhow, by the time his wife got through laughing at him, it was not a pretty sight. But anyhow, he's since passed on, but that was one of the funnier stories. And I had a man one night that he stopped and shot. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. His wife's driving the vehicle. They go past the decoy, and they swap drivers. She starts driving so he can shoot.
Yeah.
He shoots the decoy, and long story short, he ends up, when we get him stopped, he said, I asked him, we had a doe and a buck, and I said, which one did you shoot? And he said, well, I shot the buck. And I said, okay. And I said, I figured you did. He said, well, I got to telling her. He said, I don't think doe season's open yet. I said, sir, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're shooting from a state highway. That really doesn't matter now.
Well, that's just a taste of it, folks. If you ever get a chance to meet one of these wildlife officers or game wardens, or they've been called worse than that, I can't say on the radio, but they're very entertaining. They're all true stories. We got to take one final break. We'll continue with more Call of the Wild right after this last break.
This is Trey Reed. Call of the Wild continues. Once again from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Here's Wildman Steve Wilson.
Hey, you're listening to Call of the Wild this morning, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, we have a studio full of guests this morning. Our director of the Game and Fish Commission, Mr. Mike Knadel, is in here with us, telling stories, true stories, by the way. And also Major Andy Tackett, Major Pat Fitz are here with the Enforcement Division, and, of course, Trey Reed, myself. I'm Steve Wildman Wilson. We've been talking about some of the experiences they had when they were in the field. They've all moved to the office now, these big supervisor positions. And I would imagine you guys have seen a lot of change in technology. Maybe not change in behavior of some people. I would hope that it's better than it used to be through hunter education and media and just a smarter, more conscientious conservationist. Are you seeing a change in the hunter out there today?
Well, man, I'd like to address this. One of the things I think these guys will agree with me, when I was a young wildlife officer, or game warden, as I like to refer to it in the field, when I first started with this job, poaching was kind of socially acceptable.
That's true.
You went to the coffee shop and you didn't mind telling your buddy about killing over-limited ducks or shooting a deer at night or anything else. And somewhere in the 90s, that trend started changing, I think, with the generation. And I think that's part of it.
I experienced some of that in my own deer camp. It's real strange, and people draw lines at different places. I'm a member of a great Christian camp. I mean, everybody in there's kin and all this stuff. And they would, I really believe this, they would never kill a deer out of season. They would never spotlight. They really wouldn't. But for the longest, they had no problem of what we call party hunting, where a guy could only stay Monday and Tuesday, and one guy killed a deer. He said, hey, I'll check it for you because I got to go home. Right. That was acceptable. They didn't see that as wrong, but, hey, if it's wrong, it's wrong.
Sure.
Do you still see that a lot, party checking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, that's a big deal because it's, somewhere down the road, somebody's going to exceed their bag limit. And that's the whole reason for the tagging and checking is to keep the hunters accountable in the field. It's the only means we have to do that.
What do you guys think about the new telecheck? If you're out there this morning, you kill a deer, you can actually check it on your phone, or you can call it in on the phone. I know a lot of people were a little bit skeptical, thinking we wouldn't get as much compliance. I'm actually thinking we're getting better compliance than we did before when you had to take it to a check station. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. My two young kids, they both have cell phones like most of them do, and they'll have a deer called in and checked or just before we get the thing moved. It's done.
Wow.
There's a certain percentage, whichever system you work under, that's not going to be checked. And we feel like we're getting as good a check system now as we've got ever had. So.
I'm wondering, last couple of years we've checked over 200,000 deer, and I'm wondering, have we always killed that many, just never were checking them, all of them? I mean,
that was always a big question. Well, I would get asked, how many deer you think are not checked compared to the ones that are checked? And I think there was a time back early in my career I could say 50%. I really could. The deer camp check sheets come in, and they worked well for a little while, but then that was, in some cases, some of the most abused things that I seen. When you'd go into a deer camp and there'd be 50 people there, and there'd be 30 deer on the check sheet, and women had killed them all.
The wives
or kids
who just left, or
exactly.
And the kids.
They just left.
Hey, one thing we might want to touch on today. I know a lot of people are going out west hunting, out of state hunting, big game. Their seasons out there, elk start before us. A lot of people go out west to kill deer. Talk about that law that's fairly new here about transporting these carcasses through our state, either to the state or through the state. That could be serious, can't it?
That's right. we have importation restrictions, and for years we would list the states that were hot, if you will, for chronic wasting disease, and that list was fluid, was always changing. So the agency took the approach that they were going to shut it all down. We want to protect our resource. We do not want chronic wasting disease in our herd here, and that's an effort to do it. So if you go to another state and you kill an elk or a deer, the things you can bring in, and it's located on page 25 of our guidebook, is the antlers that have a clean skull plate, meat with the bones removed, clean teeth, and of course your finished taxidermy products and tan hides and so forth.
And that's even if you're coming here or going through this state to somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know Trey's asleep over there, but I'm going to talk about duck hunting a little bit and wake him up.
Hey, okay.
Duck season's not far off. It all happens at once here. You know, we got muzzleloading season starting today. We got modern gun deer season, which will be huge, November 14th. And then right after that, duck season. When's it open, Trey? November 21st?
November 21st, Wildman.
I knew that, didn't I?
Oh, yeah. I'm on top of that one.
Well, now, you've hunted Biomeda before, and we've had some problems down at Biomeda. Could some of you guys kind of summarize the problems with Biomeda and then maybe some of the ways we're trying to solve those problems?
Certainly, Wildman, I can tell you one of the major problems down there has been the boat races, and I want
you might want to explain that to people that don't.
Biomeda boat races. If you hadn't seen it, you have a computer, get on YouTube.
No, don't do it.
And it's one of those things that we have to put a stop to.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous, and it's just been compounded year to year.
Explain the setup for that, because you can't leave the bank
what
till
you
4.
have is a staging area, if you will. For most of the time, you take long pond access, and I've worked that for years. I've been there. I've actually hunted in it. But you have about 70 boats, 60 to 70, sitting in a small area, staging, waiting for 4 o'clock before they can head off in the woods. Now, keep this in mind. You've got about a 25 or 30-foot ditch that these 70 boats are going to take off.
30-foot wide.
30-foot wide that they're going to take off in, and everybody wants that favorite hole.
Nose to tail.
Nose to tail. If a boat has a hiccup at some point in time,
that's true.
I heard a wildlife officer say this one time. I truly believe it. He said, "The only thing I can think of, Director, is the duck gods come down at daylight and have keep these folks safe, because we have had some serious accidents over there. But we are committed to stopping this year. You will have to be at least 50 foot behind a boat, and we're going to have a pinch point down at the water structure, if you will, in the main ditch, where only one boat can go through at a time. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work out. We're going to beef up enforcement there by 50%. We're committed to that, and I can tell you there will be some undercover wildlife officers sitting in those staging areas. So before you do something dumb, think about it.
And what about the penalty? I think you've upped the penalties.
Yes, the penalty is if you get a citation, and after your conviction, you will be asked not to come back to Biomeda. Welcome to Biomeda for a year.
And that's true. Year. And that's not just Biomeda. Is this true on other wildlife management areas?
There's 2 areas.
Okay.
I'd like to add to that, too, that also, along with the 1-year suspension or the 1-year ban from that area, there's also administrative points that go to your hunting and fishing license. There'll be 12 points there. So if they've ever had another violation in 5 years, and even a minor one, that's going to suspend them. They're going to be out.
That makes sense. Now, if I'm listening to this show and I'm not a duck hunter, first thing I'd ask you, Mike, is say, well, why don't you let them leave before 4 o'clock? Why you make them all leave at the same time? There's reasons for that, too.
Exactly, Wildman. We've tried a little bit of everything over there, and what you get, if you leave it open all night, the folks will go and sit in the holes.
It's public land.
It's public land for 2 days. I've seen them. They will pay people to save the holes. One of the things, it kind of encourages guiding on our WMAs, which is against the law, but it's very hard to police. The guides come here, and the last thing we want people doing is making money off of our public areas.
Sure.
And so that's kind of the reasoning for the 4 a.m. start, and we don't open it up all night.
One other new law, robo-ducks there. Talk about that.
No more spinning wings on Biomeda. that it will, any decoy that simulates wing movement will now be banned from there.
And also Dave Donaldson?
Dave Donaldson.
That's right.
Yes.
Some other special rules for Balmeta. I know we're talking about Balmeta a lot because that's probably the premier hunting ground, public hunting ground in America. There's different limits down there than statewide as well.
There are different limits. I would encourage the folks that like to hunt that area to refer to the guidebook for various different reasons. There'll be some information on the new boating stuff in there, as well as the reduction in bag limit, shell restrictions, and what have you. And that doesn't just go for Balmeta. If you enjoy hunting our management areas, please go to the guidebook, because a lot of times the regulations are more restrictive on those areas.
You know, that's a good point, Pat, there. Also, I know, I think, is it just 16 of our areas that we're looking that you need a permit to hunt on, because we're trying to find out more information about who's hunting on them, what are you doing, just trying to get a feel for what people want to do.
That's right. That's called our Sweet 16s. These are strategic areas that are very high use areas. They're also listed in our guidebook.
All right, that's a way to do it. Go to our guidebook or our website at agfc.com. Guys, we're all out of time. Thank y'all so much for coming in. Director Cornell, you did a great job.
Thank you, Wildman.
Me and
You're
Trey,
kissing up. I can tell.
me and Trey need a raise bad.
We always say it. Man, I got a face for radio.
I didn't say that. I'm glad you said it. Major Tackett, Major Fitz, thank y'all for being here. Trey, have a great day, buddy.
Thanks, my man. You too. Let's
see you next week.
it.
Go kill a deer. We'll see you next week right here on Call of the Wild.
This has been Call of the Wild, sponsored by Archer's Advantage on West 12th in Little Rock, where you won't be disappointed, and Don's Weaponry in North Little Rock, when you want the best. We'll be back next weekend with more information on the great outdoors in Arkansas.